if there was a player of some impact that they could bring in using their mid-level exception, but they've got to get the payroll down to be able to use that $13 million mid-level exception, and that LeBron James would be willing to take less money on his contract to help him get there. But the players that they identified, Klay Thompson, James Harden, Jonas Valanciunas, they've gone by the boards, and it was always going to be a long shot to get those players at that price. And so it's a very limited market out there. It is a limited trade market. Unless you want to put draft picks with contracts to get money off, you're going to have trouble really adding to your roster. I don't expect the Lakers to look a whole lot different on opening night than they do now. That there's some moves around the edges. I don't sense there's a big impact move out there for the Lakers or very many teams right now.
Well, Ellie, when you look at it, if LeBron signs that max contract starting at $50 million, they would essentially have to move $25 million in salary just to go out and try to get a player like DeMar DeRozan at $13 million. So you're looking at D'Angelo Russell, you're looking at Gabe Vincent. They only have 4 second-round picks to trade. They have those 2 picks in the first round, 29 and 31. They're not trading those picks just to get off salary. They're even reluctant to move second-round picks to move off those 2 players. And there's 2 teams that have cap space, Utah at $34 million and Detroit. So that's who they would have to dump those 2 players to.
Okay.
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Settle down, Bill. Settle down, dude. We are always live on the King's Court. What's up, everybody? Kicking off a triple header here on If You Don't Like That. The King's Court live Wednesday edition, getaway kind of day edition, 4th of July, middle of the week. Most people taking Friday off. I would think you would take Friday off. Still quiet here in Sacramento. I did speak to some of my sources around the Kings. We'll get to that in a little bit. Fun show last night at 8 o'clock with Grant and I. We're going to be running that back, doing it again tonight at 8. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then also Grant will be back for Open Forum at 5 o'clock. So we got you covered every which way here on If You Don't Like That. You heard from Adrian Wojnarowski, and also, you heard from Bobby Marks there talking about the Lakers situation. I've also got some other Lakers audio that I want to play because, again, they're not leaning in. I say it all the time, lean in to the Bronny situation, right? Lean into it, but they're not. So they introduced Bronny. He signed a 4-year contract, y'all. A 4-year contract. And you wonder why the Lakers, and by the way, I haven't even got to LeBron. That's the other reason that I started the show there. LeBron has signed the 2-year max, which means the Lakers, outside of trading, just like they laid out, that's what that team is going to look like. And here in Sacramento, there's some new names popping up. Mark Spears dropped one a little bit earlier. We can get to that. But what's everybody doing for the holiday? What do we got going? Let me 4th of July plans are. Are you guys doing the illegal fireworks? Don't do the illegals. I get they're fun, but do it someplace where it can't catch on fire, where you're not going to light your roof on fire, somebody else's roof on fire. I don't know about all you. We've had fireworks going off in our neighborhood for probably 3-4 days now. I don't know what the fascination is with those damn things, but that's all right. The little ones love it. How is everyone? Getting to the chat. What is up, Bane? Yes, there is some news on Devin Carter. That should not be a surprise to anybody, by the way, and I'm skipping to the bottom of the chat there. I've been talking about his shoulder injury, but yo, happy 4th of July. What's up, my people? Bane, who you got in the hot dog eating contest? I'll tell you who I got. Joey Chestnut on September 2nd. That's the contest that I'm watching. What hot dog eating contest? What are we talking about here? With no Joey Chestnut, there is no contest. Is there even going to be people that show up to Surf and Stillwell? It'll be interesting to see. Also, really quick before I keep going down the chat, DeMarcus Cousins. Anybody get a chance to hear his latest comments? He was on a podcast that released yesterday and shared his time, his dealings with Paul Westphal, the late Paul Westphal. I get that you can share your story anytime you want, but the timing of this is really curious to me, and I think it's classless, to be completely honest with you. Yeah, let's go after Westfall when he's 6 feet under. Like, if you want to talk about a you had with a coach, wouldn't it be more appropriate to do that when the coach is still living instead of just right now when you're not really relevant in the offseason? Are you trying to drag some attention to you? I found it really interesting, and I'm not defending Paul Westfall in any way. I wasn't in the building. I don't know what that relationship looked like, but I do know this. DeMarcus sure as hell ran through a lot of coaches here in Sacramento. And it's not fair of me to say DeMarcus ran through them, but there were a lot of coaches that coached DeMarcus Cousins, more than you would usually see for a guy coming into the league and being in his, fifth, sixth, seventh seasons. Incredible. So I've got audio from that. I'd like to see what your reactions are to all that, because to me, it completely turned me off. I mean, completely turned me off. So Ash, what's up? Ash, what's the deal with the song? Are we getting a King's Court? And if you don't like that song, let me know. I want to get that going, brother. Grant announced he's going to be doing a new segment, which is going to be a lot of fun. You guys are going to get to choose Grant's rant, and he will just go off. He'll do his rant, but you get to choose the subject matter, which I think is going to be really cool when he rolls that out. We're looking, actually, by the way, if you are interested in being a sponsor here on If You Don't Like That, we would love to talk to you. In fact, that segment will be up for grabs. You see the sponsorships that we have. We have amazing sponsors. Bennett's, New Works, just to name a few. Blazona Development. I don't want to start naming them because I don't want to forget anybody. The thing about sponsors here is we don't just take anybody. And I don't want to sound conceited. I don't want to sound stuck up. I don't want to speak for Grant, but one of the things that he taught me coming to the business was the importance of sponsor relationships. And one of the things that Grant really kind of lived by and still does live by is he's got to believe in the product. He's got to use the product. He's got to like the product. And so we are very choosy about who sponsors here, but we are going to have a sponsorship up for grabs. So if you're a business owner, you know a business owner, reach out to us. You know where to find me at Ryan_in_Sacktown on the X. You can find Grant at Grant Napier Show. We can get in touch with you via email, give you numbers, give you all that stuff, not numbers monetary wise, but let you know the analytics of what this station does, because it is pretty damn powerful. And yeah, it's probably going to be a light day today. A lot of people getting away for the holiday. Totally understand that. Richard, you're in DC right now. You said you were going from Dallas to DC. Hope that's going well for you. Ben, what's up, man? Happy to have you here today. Bronny's worth every bit of that guaranteed contract he received. He's worth every bit of that guaranteed contract when it comes down to business. The Lakers are going to make a killing off of the business of LeBron and Bronny. Zakara breaking the news here, which we were going to get to eventually. Devin Carter will not play in the California Classic. Not a big surprise. I mentioned yesterday they were going to start getting that shoulder looked at in that evaluation period. So absolutely no reason to rush him to the court. And again, I also have my update, talking to a couple of my sources around the Kings, kind of what's going on. Because I think a lot of you are getting anxious. I think we see names coming off the board, and you wonder, well, if the Kings really wanted to trade for somebody, they've got to have a backup right? What if a trade go through? Who are they going to sign? I've got some more information. And so I want to talk about that a little bit more because the big thing to remember, we kind of got into it last night, was the Kings were never going to be crazy active in free agency. They just weren't. So trade is how traditionally this team is usually improved, but it's no different this year. And if you caught the back end of what Bobby Marks and Woj were saying, it costs you 2 picks at least to dish salary out. So you can see these teams are being much more picky about the contracts. And I would tell you, if you look at the league, if you put it in order by the teams that are the most flexible, most liquid, I call it liquidity, but teams that could move at any time. If they want to trade some players, they can. If they have a partner, if they want to get off a contract, they can. If they want to sign somebody to a big extension, they can. That's not true of every team as they laid out. Only a couple teams in the NBA right now with room under the cap, which is to be expected about this time of year. But there is a new name that's popped up, so we'll get to that once we get through the chat. Yes, sir. Love it, Patrick. You get a holy moly,
Holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley.
For that, dude. Hope you're having a great one. It's a little bit. Hey, Patrick, what's the weather like on the East Coast right now? I know you get more humidity than we do, but it is hot as hell out here in Sacramento. So stay cool. Definitely stay cool. Make sure that you are hydrating. When are the Kings going to make some deals? We'll talk about it in a second. I want to get through the chat. LeBron paying himself. Exactly, right? LeBron signed himself to a 2-year max extension. But do you notice the norm now, or I guess I should say the new norm? Shorter contracts. And last night, Grant said really get a chance to go back and forth on this because I wanted to, but we veered off a little bit in what we were talking about. But he said a lot of money is being thrown around. And I would argue the opposite. A lot of money is not being thrown around. I think teams are being very fiscally responsible. I don't think that they're getting into bed. Now, the Paul George signing, that's a different story. You're getting into bed with him for 4 years. But a lot of teams are doing 2-3 years with options included. So I just think that, well, I said it yesterday, Malik Monk, it's a reason that he ended up coming to an agreement during the bird rights. I don't think Malik would have got more than he is getting in Sacramento on the open market. I don't. Do you think he would have got more than KCP? I don't think so. KCP has been on a championship team. He has played high-level basketball. He started. He's come off the bench. He's done it in big markets in Los Angeles. Now, granted, he was in trouble with the law a little bit. And by the way, did you hear about the Cameron Payne story? That was pretty damn weird. He called the cops and then didn't want to give the cops his name, gave him a fake name. We can get into that a little bit later if we have time. Working. All right. Love it, Richard. Yep. Typical Cousins, coach killer Cousins. Look, I don't want to throw Cousins under the bus. Don't know the guy. He kept his hands clean off the court. He was fairly quiet off the court, but in the building, completely different story. You've heard Grant's, different things that he shared with us about DeMarcus. He said there's things he can't share that, Grant's rule of thumb is that would the public have been in a position to see or hear this? And if the answer is no, if your access, whether it's from calling games, whether it's from working for the team, if your access got you that information, then you probably shouldn't share it unless you're sourcing and reporting. Patrick, I like the guy who said all rants matter. Somebody said that last night. Yeah, it was I thought it was a really good conversation. And quite frankly, one of the stories that had the biggest impact on a lot of my friends. I know Haunted Horse. I just saw him in the chat a second ago. Grant went on one of my friend's shows called The Woodscopes. It's more of a Jim Rome centric show. And sometimes on The Woodscopes, you don't know what to expect. And in fact, Jim Rome has actually been on The Woodscopes, but Grant went on there and he shared the exact same story about Mad Dog and what Grant's father taught him, educated him on. And it's pretty freaking powerful. So I'm glad Grant shared that yesterday. Yeah, it is a slow day, but we'll get to the Kings update in a second. George Karl never had a chance. But to be fair, I don't know if George Karl really wanted to coach. Part of me thinks he might have wanted the bag. Yeah, don't let that get back to him. At his show. I don't want that to his head, So let's get to the Kings news. So I did have an opportunity to talk to a few people. Here's what I know, and here's what I can share. They are active. Now, there is a quiet confidence. I said this last night on the 8 o'clock show, but there is a quiet confidence on how last year ended, regardless of it being another loss to the Pelicans, missing the playoffs. But the style of play in which they were able to play, it felt like something that could stick around. It felt like something that you could build on. And when you looked at the free agent market, I go back to this, there weren't a ton of names out there that really would fit with Sacramento, have a ton to work with. And we're 3 free agency basically. But the big names, here's the big come away from the talk. The big names that we're hearing, what have been some of the trademarks of a Monty McNair front office? 1, very calculated. 2, they really like liquidity, fluidity, right? They want to be able to not be tied down to too many players. They want to be able to make moves when they're going to make moves. And then the third is they're extremely quiet. They really keep things within the building. So the source that I talked to said, look, if you're hearing a name like we've heard Brandon Ingram, like we've heard Kyle Kuzma, like we've now DeMar DeRozan, that's the latest one. Mark Spear of ESPN saying that DeMar DeRozan could be a dark horse to come to the Kings, whatever that may entail, whether it's he's a free agent, so you'd have to sign him. I don't know how you work the contract out. MLE, I guess, would probably be the shot. But even that name leaking out, what I was told is if you want to predict what this team is going to do, look in the places where other people are not. Because a lot of times, the example that was brought up to me was the Tyrese Halliburton trade. Nobody, and I mean nobody, saw that trade coming. And so I am getting the impression, unless something changes with what the Pelicans are asking for, something changes with what the Wizards are asking for, that it is too rich for the Kings. And the other thing that I was told is this is not a 1-year thing. Look, they want to get as good as they can as quickly as possible. But this timeline does not end at the end of the season. They're looking a little bit more long-term with that, meaning they want some time left on a contract. Bringing in and mortgaging a guy for the next, or mortgaging the future of draft picks for the next 3-4 years could greatly impact a team that you are trying to build as a young team, a young but experienced team. And as for Keegan Murray, it seems like Keegan is off the table. So any deals that we're thinking about with Keegan, it does not seem likely that that is going to happen. However, I was told there are certain situations, and the word situation really stuck out to me, because look around the NBA right now. There are teams that have a high payroll, a very high payroll, yet they are not expected to be super competitive, or their ceiling is maybe the first round of the playoffs. There's teams like that that have gone all in that realize, oh no, we need to get out a little bit. So when I say situations, what about a team like Milwaukee? What about a team like the Knicks? The Knicks have brought a decent amount of talent in this offseason, right? They locked up OG. They've got Mikal Bridges coming in. But where does that leave? Think about this. Where does that leave some of the other guys that may or may not have been a part of that playoff run? So when I started looking at the different teams that have been active, I'm looking at guys like Mitchell Robinson. He's got a couple years left on his deal. I'm looking at guys like a Bobby Portis Jr. He has another year, and then he has an option on top of that. Guys that are affordable, where that team is still looking to get better, but making fringe moves. So those two names were not mentioned to me. However, situations similar to that are the ones that I came away from with the looking to take advantage or hop on one of those situations where a team may need a little bit more shooting and is looking to offload a little bit, that may be willing to part with an older piece because they want to get a little bit younger. And so the Bulls, there's been some reports about their interest in Kevin Huerter. But I guess what I'm saying is I came away thinking that any of the names that we have heard thus far, they're not likely. In fact, I'm going to probably start moving past most of those. That includes Kuzma. That includes Ingram. I think it's too rich for the Kings' blood. I don't think that they are willing to part with the draft capital for the commitment that they would get in exchange, with no guarantee that those guys would re-sign. I did say this last night on the 8 o'clock show, and I will repeat it one more time. Lauri Markkanen is looking to go into free agency. His agent has made it clear to multiple outlets that that is something they are looking forward to. Does that mean that he could be in the move? Sure, because he got 1 year left on his contract. This is the last year on that contract. However, it would have to be to a team that's going all in. It have to be to a team that thinks they would be able to re-sign him, because the price is going to be so steep. You're talking at least 4 first-round draft picks for Lauri Markkanen for 1 year of his services. So I guess what I want all of you to come away with from what I'm sharing with you is this: start looking in places that other people are not, because those are going to be, if a move comes, and I can promise you, the Kings are being very active right now. They have identified numerous situations, players that they would like to come to Sacramento, or they may feel would have a good fit. But a couple of qualifiers, again, time length on the contract, 2 years, is really the feeling that I got. At least this year and another year on the contract. And don't player, a Cam Johnson. I was surprised that name came out, because it would be a move like that where Cam has 3 years left on his contract. That would be a good move for Sacramento. That was reported on draft night. Could that still be possibly in the works? Maybe. I don't know. I wasn't anything about that, but I would say expect the unexpected. So start looking in the places other people are not. That's what I am doing. You guys should as well, but come away with this knowing the Kings are trying to improve. They have a plan in place. They have a list of guys that they would like to go get, and they are in talks. They're talking to a lot of people. It is the time of year when everybody is talking to everyone for the most part, but they are in no rush either. That is the big thing. They are not in any rush. Again, there's a quiet confidence among this group that there is a lot of correctable that can, or there's a lot of quote unquote correctables that can be fixed, that can really move this team back closer, at least to much more competitive, closer games, higher net rating. And the defense is where it starts. It's going to have to be a defensive first person. So the Levine, done in my eyes. Don't see it happening. He's been here before, and we've already got a ton of guards. Alec Burks to the Heat. Yes, Kemba retired today. He had a hell of a career. How about that, Sea-Dog? Mark, wouldn't a team do a sign and trade for Lauri? That's the thing. Maybe not. If you're a team that's got that small window and you're willing to go over, and I guess you would have to do the sign and trade for this reason. The sign and trade would allow you to extend, because you can only extend your free agent, that will allow you to go over. There's a lot of things involved, but the sign and trade, here's the tricky part for the player too. And this gets argued all the time. If the player wants to go to a team that's competitive, then why are you going to take away assets from that team for you to go over there? You know, it's going to hurt your situation a little bit less. But yes, all those things are on the table. It is possible. Things can change. Things can happen. I mentioned at the top that I wanted to talk a little bit about DeMarcus Cousins. Now, this one, I'm going to save my opinion for the end. We're going to play some segments of this for you. He was on the Forgotten Seasons podcast, and he talked about his time, specifically his rookie year, coming in to the NBA, and really right off the bat, not meshing well with with Paul Westphal. Remember Paul Westphal, legendary coach in the NBA, the late Paul Westphal. I know he was very close with Grant at times. But here's DeMarcus. So we're going to do a few extended cuts. You might get about a minute or two of audio. We'll come back. We'll talk. Put your comments in the chat. Let me know what you think. DeMarcus Cousins on the Forgotten Seasons podcast.
Mm-hmm. And we just weren't on the same page. He hated the way I carried myself. He hated the way I walked. He hated the way I fucking looked. And in that moment, it's just like I couldn't get past that part. It's just like, dude, like I remember one day I was in the weight room. And I went to the weight room probably maybe 3 hours before practice. Like trying to go in, get a good workout in, whatever, before practice. And I had the music playing. I put my music on. Paul Westphal walks through in the middle of my lift. I'm the only one in there. And obviously the trainer. Paul Westphal walks through, like unplugs the music. And it's just like, we don't allow that type of music here. And I'm like, what? Yeah, and I'm looking like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, and he was like, my teams don't play that type of music, and I would prefer you play some classical music, or it was something else he named. I'm just like, yo, what the fuck? And then he kind of said something to the trainer at the time and was like, anybody play rap gets fined. So I'm just like, yo, what the fuck kind of shit is this? Like, I'm like, this the NBA, and I'm coming from Kentucky. We got
with Drake
booming, like
with Drake. Now we ain't listening to Drake.
You feel me? Like we got OJ Juice Man on it. Like we doing our thing. Like, so I'm just like, damn. Like, so it was that, and it was a lot. I mean, I can go on and on with different stories that kind of rubbed me the wrong way with just dealing with him, but it helped me realize like how the system was kind of outdated, if that makes sense. And I've heard stories like that. I've seen like coming up, because I'm a 90s baby, coming up, like even when it came to like high school, middle school, you had these certain coaches and they'd just be like, no rap music, or but at the time
there was grumblings that these old dudes still existing.
All right, let's cut it off really there for a second. Okay, I get the rap music thing, both sides of it. What's the big deal? It's a genre of music. It's your preference, right? I also see the other side of it where sometimes there's words that can be used in rap music. There's words that can be used in rock music. There's words that can be used in country music that can be offensive. So you don't know. Remember, this is the thing. That is a work environment. I'd ask you this. Are you allowed to blast certain things over your office that may have cussing in it, that may be explicit? And I get we're talking two different things. We're talking about reality versus norms, right? Like, what is the norm? So I've never been in the NBA. I don't know if it is normal for a coach to determine what the players can listen to and what not. I'm sure that has to do with directly anything that is in the facility. I'm sure it was no rap music across the board. If you got your headphones, put your headphones, right? So I get both sides of it. And yes, I see. So we're going to keep listening. We're going to listen to a lot of audio from this because I want to get your full dose of this. But again, what I go back to is why now? I don't understand why this is coming out now. But anyways, let's go back to DeMarcus and the guys on the Forgotten Seasons podcast.
But it's
About the
still
rap music.
right.
Yeah.
But you still respect it because you're a kid. Like, so now I'm in this position and like I'm getting paid to play basketball. I'm this dude, this man is just like, man, no rap music. It's just like, yo, what the fuck are you on? Like, how you gonna tell me what I can listen to? Like, maybe this is comfortable for me when I'm lifting. Like, maybe. So it was just weird. But even with that, what really put the nail in the coffin for me with dealing with Westfall was hollered at a reporter, and I ain't gonna say his name, but he was a beat writer for many years in SAC. And he actually put me on game because he was like, draft night, like it was a kind of a huge back and forth about who they wanted to draft. And Westfall wanted Greg Monroe, who I think ended up going 7, maybe. I went 5. I think Greg Monroe went 7. Yeah, because Golden State had the 6th pick. They took Epe Udoh.
Yeah.
But so he was like, yeah, Westfall wanted Greg Monroe. The Kings wanted you. So I'm like, damn, you would think the coach would want the same as the rest of the organization. Like, that only makes sense. So I was like, nah, he wanted Monroe, and Westfall.
Those debates happen all the time. Those debates happen all the time. Now, I get when you're picking as high as the Kings and when you're a team that has not been relevant for a really long time and you've been running through coaches, I understand. You probably want your organization all on the same page, but I want you to realize how something like this, something like that, where a beat reporter could go up to a player and set how something as small as that, something that this is really before Twitter and like I guess MySpace, Facebook, that stuff was around. Twitter was around, but it wasn't booming like it is today. Could you imagine what these guys see on day-to-day basis, whether it's through the media and reports or whether it's on their timelines about who wants them, who doesn't want them? They wanted this player, they wanted that player. But I'm not going to knock the media member for doing his job, but also as a professional athlete, you got to see both sides of that. The media member is looking to get a story, looking to get a reaction. Going back to DeMarcus.
Me, I play the way I play. I've always played that way. I'm a playmaking. I'm a playmaking big. I can score the ball, like all of these different things. So when it came to me, when I got there for training camp, summer league, like everything was cool. Like, they gave me the green light. Go do what you do. The regular season rolled around, which is understandable because, things do switch. But they've been giving me the game plan since I stepped foot there. And, the summer league comes there before the rest of the kind of veteran guys. But we didn't necessarily have a veteran team. We had 1 year, 2 year, maybe 3 year guys on the team. This was a rebuilding team. So since I stepped foot, they giving me the game plan. They telling me how they wanted me to play, all these things. Regular season starts. Westfall is like, I don't want you to shoot the ball. I don't want you to do anything but set screens and roll. And if you get rebounds, kick it out. I'm just like, huh? Like, what do you mean? Like, so we were never on the same page from day one. And, it was always these runs of us not getting along. And, Westfall would, say his things in the media, whatever. So I ended up hollering at that reporter, and he's the one that gave me the scoop. I'm just like what dude got against me? Like, he was like, yeah, he never wanted you here in the first place. He always wanted Greg Monroe. And when I thought about Greg Monroe's game, and just damn, he do get the system, so it made sense why he wanted him. But for me, it was just like, bro, this don't even make no sense. How the organization want me, but you got a coach that.
Thoughts so far. Again, the timing is predominantly what it's poorly. This could have been told many years ago. This could have been told while it was going on. It partially was. There was rumblings about him and Westfall not getting together. And remember this too, DeMarcus is a rookie. You know, it's almost like DeMarcus is taking this stance and telling this story as if at the time as a rookie, he had already seen his career through. He knew what he was going to be. He knew that he was going to be a possible all-star. He knew that he was going to be a franchise player, right? And so I don't know what to make of it. That's why we're playing it and we're talking about it. I want all of you to jump in because it gets into more with the Paul Westfall and DeMarcus exchanges. But again, the timing just isn't set well with me. I mean, I get DeMarcus can't control the fact that Paul Westfall passed away, but I also don't like the fact that the other side of the story doesn't have an opportunity to be told. So I'm not taking Paul's side. I'm not taking DeMarcus's side. Obviously, there was an issue right off the bat. Now, if a coach told DeMarcus not to shoot, he wants you to set screens, and he only wants you to kick the ball out. Here's the thing. Think about this. Who employs the coach? Who employs the coach? The organization. So if the organization wanted DeMarcus Cousins, and if we're going off of DeMarcus's side of the thing, if the organization wanted DeMarcus and Paul Westfall did not want DeMarcus, wouldn't the organization then be pushing on Paul Westfall? Why are you using him like this? You are not getting the best out of our guy, etc., etc. So it's interesting. We will go on here.
Doesn't want me, and then you expect it to work. Like,
what are you supposed to do with that information? What are you even supposed to do with that information as a rookie?
It was more so for
maybe it
me.
gives you
I was always trying to figure out.
context.
I'm like, what this dude got against me, bro?
Yeah,
Like,
some context.
Yeah,
I'll take. He had a lot more against you than that. You know, he what you represented, what I did for him in 1998. A lot of the same shit that I went through, bonkers shit that he did to me in practice, and that he would do or try to set me up for failure. What you represented was it was a clash with the old regime, Boogie. And the way the old things were done, old coaching ways of like, I just need a screen and roller. No, motherfucker, we want the best player. We have an opportunity to get a guy who's a 5-tooler, and you're telling us just to go get the screen and roller. We ain't going for it. We cut the checks. And now as you can start to see as those guys have either that's transition TV or they get them the fuck out of the way.
Yes.
Bless their hearts, the best ones who get the message, whether like the
God is the man from sunny California that's life been pretty peachy.
Super peachy.
Like to tell me how to deal with my everyday struggles. And it's not the same.
No.
And it never will be. Like,
well, put to both of you, like the fucked up situation is the fucked up situation. I know Jelani, I assume you're the same way. You don't live in a life of regret, but are there any, like knowing what both of you know now, having all these years, is there even anything you think you could have done at that time, whether it be a direct conversation with him, or is it just?
I don't, honestly, and I've tried. Like, for the most part, I'm always.
We'll cut it there really quick. We'll get back to it in a second. Grant has no problem with DeMarcus Cousins. He would tell you that right now. Grant is the one that responded to DeMarcus Cousins. He never had an issue with him as a player. He criticized DeMarcus on the air, But when it comes down to that one situation that you're talking about, that does not affect Grant. He's on the record saying this, so I don't want to speak for him, but I am just repeating what he has said, that it's fine. There is no ill will there. And then Kings fan Krish, you lost me. Or here we go. You lost me there, dude. I didn't know about Westfall. Things about Westfall. This just shows how unprofessional the organization was when they drafted Cousins. Follows up with, was never a huge Cousins fan, but Kings mismanaged him. No rap music. Come on. A player should never know a coach didn't want him. Well, technically, the organization did not tell him that. That came from a reporter. And I don't disagree with you about the mismanagement of the team. I completely agree. The team was mismanaged for a long time. There were internal power struggles. There were a lot of issues going on. That's why you don't make the playoffs for 16 years. And again, I am not defending Paul Westfall by any means. I am not defending Boogie Cousins. I am simply trying to point out certain things, give context that I can. I'm trying to get your guys' reaction to it. Clearly, right off the bat, there was an issue between the two. My point is, the only point that I have about this so far that I am saying on the record, I wish this would have been discussed before Paul Westfall passed away. Because what are you going to believe? And it's a great point that you make. And really, at the end of the day, this stuff doesn't matter. And Dog's right that that's my point. It's what's the reason for this? Why are we doing this now? You know, like all of these things are nothing new. There's old school, there's new school. That's how it works. It's why you see younger coaches, you see older coaches. You've seen the league move towards younger coaches. Before, it was younger and old coaches. It was players coach and non-players coach. Some teams, some coaches ran their organizations and their teams differently. So at the time when DeMarcus came in the league, yes, there was a big crossroads going on, and we have to acknowledge that. DeMarcus acknowledges that. But it does speak to, and I think that is actually, and I'm really glad you brought that up, Krish, it does speak to how poorly this franchise was mismanaged. Because I guarantee you, Devin Carter, you don't think that there were detractors that thought there was a better player on board than Devin Carter? Sure there was. It's healthy debate. It's what it is. That's how you get to a point where you have a successful organization. You don't want a bunch of yes men around you. You need different views, different views, different opinions. And that is how you come to a conclusion. I just think it's really interesting timing. It makes sense, though, because that relationship was fractured almost right from the start. But then you look at the track record. Again, how many coaches were here during the era? So I guess I would also like to hear, and I know, and Michael Malone, they seemed to get together pretty well, got along well. DeMarcus was not happy when Malone was fired. You get it, etc. But what are the other stories then? If we're going to talk about Paul Westfall, what happened with the coaches after him? I'm just curious. In fact, let's bring BJ in on the conversation. What's up today, BJ?
Hey, how you guys doing, man?
Good. How you doing?
Excellent, excellent. I just out and about, running some errands, not working today, and I listened to a little bit last night about you guys had an incredible call, and I just love listening to Napes, and I just had a chance to comment that we're really blessed to be able to have someone like that who is truly authentic in how he feels, and he has the highest utmost values and morals. He doesn't you could tell he's not malicious, doesn't mean to hurt anybody, and he's down to earth, and I think that's awesome. And it kind of spills into this conversation. I haven't seen this the thing with Cousins, and the fact of the matter is that I don't have anything against Cousins. I don't know the man, and I was really in his corner. I really rooted for him because I'm a Kings guy. And the fact is and we don't know everything, or I don't know everything that happened in what the whole story is. But I do know this, that Mr. Cousins had the chance and the ability to be a superstar, and he had the opportunity, and I think maybe there's probably some communication breakdown, and that maybe he took things personally. I think the NBA, there could have been not the NBA, but I think people should have maybe noticed around him that maybe being able to deal with emotional. I don't want to say emotional IQ, but just being able to talk with people and communicating, and maybe understanding what other people want, having boundaries, like what are the expectations, and if you don't meet these boundaries, then this is a rule break, and then that, a hard line. This flows into from someone that plays, not someone, but people that may play a sport or play one thing and constantly do it, and they might be really good all the time, and then when it comes to actually really doing it and following maybe a program, it may be hard to buy into. And these are the things that build a culture and an identity, and it's called the intangibles. When you have someone that approaches a game that is your best player in the building, or because Cousins could catch the ball, he could run the floor,
Yeah, he
he
had
could
great
pass.
hands.
He had an incredible footwork, which was just phenomenal. Like, you would think, and one thing blew me away is during when I had a chance, I really watched a lot of games. I just love basketball. Basketball saved my life. I watched that team a lot, and I remember watching his footwork and just thinking, man, if this guy just made a phone call to like the Dream, Hakeem, or made a phone call to Kareem, or and reached out. And I remember him in an interview saying, why would I ask those guys? They're old. They don't. And I knew at that point that if at any point in our life that we feel that we've already gotten there, and we're not willing to learn and take positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement to get better, you stop growing. And that is a bad case. Especially, it doesn't matter how good you are. You can have the best shoes, the best basketball, the best facility, but if the mind is not right, the mindset and the mentality and the way you approach the game and the respect of the game, I think the way the world works, and it's just universal law. It happens in business, happens in families. If you don't have good values and morality, things tend to crumble. So with that said, I really wished Cousins was going to do well, and he had a lot of chances. I thought the injuries really messed him up, and that's to something for young people to remember, that you could be the best in one day, and the next day you could twist an ankle, and you have to rely on other things in basketball. And so I love you, man. I wish I could call more. I don't have a card with me. I did get a couple really cool cards today. I'm out and about. My other hobby is cacti, so I have a lot of different cactus and stuff. So I'll have to introduce that in next couple of calls. So
Please do.
Yeah, I know that. Did Mr. Reynolds get on Tuesday? By chance, did I miss him?
He had something come up last minute, and so everything's fine with him. Obviously, life comes first, so he'll be back next Tuesday with us here.
Right. The thing about Mr. Reynolds, is he from French Lick?
He is.
Indiana. So when we get a chance to hear Mr. Reynolds speak about basketball and where it's come from, and his heart is very wholesome. There's something to be said about, yes, sir. Just put it right here. I appreciate it. I thank you very much. I love your food. Thank you. There's something to be said about Mr. Reynolds, because we can get a piece of wisdom from him, and we can get a glimpse of how things were and how they actually still are. Just like Coachy. If you remember Coachy, he was out there, and if you ever had a chance to be around him and hear what he was saying, it was literally, not only did he look like Yoda, it was literally like he was like spitting out information like Yoda. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm being blessed with wisdom that is not even earned. And so that goes back to Mr. Cousins. He probably was thrown into a lot of stuff. He probably got introduced to a lot of wisdom that he did not earn, and didn't know how to potentially carry it on, maybe, or how to deal with it. And maybe our G League it doesn't matter how good your G League and all these other guys are going to be, but if you don't have it upstairs, you can jump out of the gym, you can pass the ball, but if you don't show up right, then what's the use?
Nailed it.
So,
yep. Absolutely. BJ,
mindset.
dude, love the call, brother. Have a great and safe 4th of July. By the way, Imran's going to be here from the shop on Friday. Make sure you're here. We're talking cards, collectibles.
When is that?
It's going to be on Friday. This Friday. Imran's going to be here on the show where he does a show on 1140 on the weekend. So come catch up with us, talk card market, collectible markets, where it's headed, the resurgence, all that. And so I know that you want to be a big part of that conversation. So make sure you come around.
I do, and I'll bust out some of my favorites, like my Ricky Henderson rookie and Roberto Clemente rookie, and the story behind how I got that. It's just I love my cards, and I love sharing them. So I even got Seabiscuit the other day. I'll share the Seabiscuit card. It's kind of cool.
For sure. Get them ready.
I will.
All right, brother. Be well.
Friday.
That is BJ. I think Krish really knocked it out of the park. So I'm sitting here and kind of digesting this. I only listened to an excerpt from this interview. We were listening to it in a live time. And as I'm thinking about that time period more, when DeMarcus came into the NBA, you got to remember there is a delicate balance. And Grant did a good job of explaining this, but there's a delicate balance and a difference between a coach that is coaching high school, obviously the levels in the competition, but a high school coach versus a college coach. It changes there. From college to the pros, it changes there. And it comes into the realm closer to people management. It is managing personalities in the NBA. And Paul Westphal, when he came to the Kings, he was at the tail end of his career, right? And he had success in Phoenix. He had success in other places. And so he probably had a system, right? Most coaches have their system, just like we talk about a Mike Brown guy, quote unquote. Well, when DeMarcus came into the league, he was a big that could shoot the three, right? That was different back then. And in fact, you could almost argue DeMarcus was a little bit ahead of the curve. He was where the NBA was heading. He was that big man that was a little bit more versatile. And so I don't know, because I was never in a Paul Westphal locker room. I mean, it's a better question to Grant about how the system was ran then and how Paul coached. But I've got to imagine, just based off of how a lot of old school coaches run systems, it's their way, right? And sometimes that leads to championships. Sometimes that leads to getting fired and running the organization into the ground. And it feels like that is where the conflict began. Now, if reportedly they didn't want him, or Paul did not want him, but the Kings saw the talent there, then yes, you don't have left hand speaking to right hand. And that needs to be a little bit better. And really, shame on that media member for stirring the pot. If that's what really kind of thing, and I know the rap music is a part of this story as well, but I could see where Paul Westphal would want DeMarcus to do the big man things. If we're going by what they're saying on the podcast is true, that he wanted a Greg Monroe. He wanted more of a traditional big. Now, this I will say about DeMarcus Cousins. I will never forget the first game back at Arco Arena after the team was saved by Vivek. It was the last season at Arco. They had a big opening night ceremony. David Stern was there. The Kings were playing the Nuggets. I remember Grant and Jerry were in tuxedos. It was a huge celebration. They brought in some special screens to go over the regular screens on the Jumbotron. It was a big deal. Finally, us as Kings fans, we could take that deep breath. We could exhale. And that's how we felt as fans. Imagine if you were a player and it's your livelihood and it's your family year to year, not knowing, am I going to Seattle? Are we going to LA? Where's my next spot going to be? What's the future of this team? Right? So you had anxiety, but going back to that night, It was a perfect night. And if you remember, or at least the way I remember it, DeMarcus Cousins may have played his best game, in my opinion, all around game, not just on the offensive end. It was defense too. Remember, DeMarcus actually was not afraid to step in and take a charge. And when you had DeMarcus's attention, when he was focused on something, nothing was going to stop him from getting that, right? And so he played his ass off that night, and I maintain, and they won the game. It was a they defended, and Denver missed the last second three. The Kings win, fitting. Everybody goes home happy. The team's staying in Sacramento, right? But I'll never forget thinking this dude is different. He can do it all to a degree, but the one part that was missing was upstairs. And when I say upstairs, he had some issues with the emotional control. There's plenty of stories about things that have been said on the court, fans being yelled at. In fact, I can document one of those because Jim Rome, see that thing behind me? Rome was in town. It was it was January 7th, 2017, or January 6th, 2017. I got to go in studio with Rome when he did the show here in Sacramento. I got to go on with him for about 5 minutes. It was like the highlight of my life at the time. And anyways, he ended up giving us all tickets to the game that night. And Romy was at the game too. And Rome was sitting courtside. We were about, I don't know, 8 or 10 rows off the court. And somebody was yelling something at DeMarcus. To be fair, I have no idea what that person said, what that fan said. We know that sometimes alcohol and fans being too close to the action doesn't always mix. But DeMarcus loudly and clearly yelled back, "Shut the F up, sit your effing fat A-word down." And it was at a time when everybody was already headed towards the exits. So it came through pretty clear. And remember, they have microphones that are attached or right there near the backboard, so you can hear the ball go through the net and all that. And the following Monday, when Romy went back into studio, Romy actually did like a 10, 12-minute segment on it. And Romy heard the exact same thing. And so it's that kind of stuff too. You know, if you're the franchise player, you're allowed to do that once in a while, right? You're allowed to do that maybe once a season, but you can't all the time. And there were too many times that DeMarcus was getting hooked, whether it was by coaches, other teams, etc. Guy had all the talent in the world. It's sad, you know, it's bad time, but it is what it is. I mean, if you think about it, actually, DeMarcus's game, if you took DeMarcus in his prime, he would be so good with Domantas Sabonis. He would be so good with Domas. The way they both have soft hands, he can shoot a three, stretch the floor for Domas. He would be a prototypical perfect piece for the Kings. So it's sad that it worked out that way. We bring in Corn Dog. What's up today, Corn? So if you're gonna come up, Corn Dog, get in here.
So
what's up, dude?
I'm kicking off my 4th of July off correctly with the Freedom Fusion Mountain Dew.
Freedom Fusion. Dude, how many different flavors of Mountain Dew are out there? It feels like 900.
These are one of the. I also have a Liberty Chill in my fridge for tomorrow, the blue one of Mountain Dew, and they always come up with something. I got a couple of the strange flavor empty bottles in my room somewhere, next to my class of 2015 Coca-Cola bottle.
There you go. So,
you know
you're a soda collector, huh?
You know, not really, but you know what? Coca-Cola needs to come back with the class of bottles. I think that's cool to have. You know, Coca-Cola. You know, your high school graduating class on your Coca-Cola bottle.
Would you ever crack that thing open and drink it? You think it'd still be good?
Oh no, mine's already drank. I still have the bottle.
There you go. There you go. Good stuff. So what's up? Let me. The ladies will do the justice of asking the question for me.
What's that? What's up? What's up?
One of the best commercials of all time, by the way. The Bud Light commercial where all the old ladies are like, "What's up?"
But honestly, yeah, DeMarcus Cousins. I have a jersey of him. You know, he was the most talented player I've seen in Sacramento. And I was right in high school at the time, you know. So it's not only that I was into basketball, I actually was starting to like really understand the game and stuff, and understand, you know, how play calling and stuff works and different play styles and stuff, and building rock, you know, well, when you really actually get a grasp on, you know, how these sports work, you know, like football and stuff, and you know how much more complicated it actually is than just running around with a ball. So yeah, and he was just, you know, the most talented guy, but he was talk about it, shooting yourself in the foot is Boogie Cousins with his Sacramento era, because there were so many times where we could have been fine, we could have, you know, won a game, but then if he didn't get a foul call his way, every time he would just start making boneheaded fouls. He would start forcing terrible shots, and it would, you know, be a 10-point swing because of that. Because then we'd also have to take him out. Maybe he'd get a tech or a flagrant, you know. It would be a 10-point swing just because of that one call that didn't go his way. And that I saw pretty much every game of the Boogie era. That pretty much comes down to it. You know, I have a bunch of collector's cups from that era. I've been to them live. I saw them at home, you know, when I should have been doing homework. You know, I was paying more attention to the Sacramento Kings.
That's what Kings fans do. That's what we do.
But yeah, again, you know, and honestly, you know, him and Sabonis right now would be such a rebounding force that no team would get any.
Oh, it'd be a monster.
Yeah,
it'd be so good.
There would be no second chance points if you're playing against the Kings. It would
be incredible.
Impossible.
Yeah. It would be really good. Yeah, Boogie was super, super talented. It's just what came along with it. And I think some Sacramento fans, I've been critical of Fox, and I think we're kind of a little bit scarred from Boogie, how much he would talk to the refs and pout sometimes with the refs or get technicals. When Fox really started picking, it picked up a little bit the playoff season. But then this last season, it really picked up. It was like almost every single call. So I think we're a little bit sensitive to that. It's just like, put your head down and play. Like that.
Oh, yeah. You know what?
So that's what you do.
Yeah, you know what? Especially if you're the, you know, the team leader, you're the best player, you're their shot at winning this game. You're putting, you know, you're the guy. You just got to, you know, find a way to move on and win the game. You really can't be doing pouting and stuff, because it's just not going to work, you know, especially, you know, when we're the Sacramento Kings and we haven't, you know, built up that reputation. Even though you're talented like a star, you're not, you know, LeBron James or Kobe Bryant yet. You know, you're not those guys yet in the league. So you're not going to get those whistles your way. Everyone knows that's just how it works.
Yep. I really think is kind of talking through this. I'm with Krish. Krish is exactly right. Part of it's on DeMarcus, you know, but part of it's on the organization.
Yes,
due diligence, it's mismanagement. You got to get in front of it with a player. You can't let the player run the team.
Also,
and
you know, 9 million different coaches.
So it's a tough one. I mean, certainly, I mean, that's the illustration. It was a push and a pull. I mean, that trade that the Kings made to send him to New Orleans was not an easy thing for them to do. I mean, they really tried to make it work, and it was clear. I mean, I think it would have been one of the worst signings in Kings history if you would have signed him to a max deal here in Sacramento.
Again, I don't think he was worth that max.
Yeah.
He was just a tier below the max.
Yeah.
He was just that tier below. That's just, you know, there was a lot of negative. Now, if we're just talking pure positives, Boogie's 100% max no matter what. But, you know, that baggage with him is, you know, a ball and chain.
For sure. For sure. Hey, you got any plans besides the soda for tomorrow?
Any plans? Probably just some hot dogs and watching the hot dog eating contest.
You are going to watch it? I don't
Oh,
even know who's in it. Have they released the roster?
You know what? Let's actually just find that out right
Let's
now.
pull this up right now. Who's in the hot dog eating contest?
Let's find out.
There's that guy like Eater X. He paints his face. He's probably going to be in it. Let's see. Matt Stoney should probably be in it as well.
Stoney's a top dog. Kobayashi.
Stoney's a stud.
Yeah, Kobayashi's another one.
Oh, you know what? We're going to get some odds here for you on the King's Court. By the way, I do want to say this really quick. We're going to, Bill, do us a favor.
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Yeah, we're not going to do any more of the boogie audio today. I'm going to take that. So you know how I do my morning shoot-arounds here on the King's Court? I'm going to play the second half of that on the morning shoot-around tomorrow, unless something were to happen today with the Kings. And we'll put that up on 4th of July and continue dissecting it. No intended, because we're talking about the hot dog eating contest. But here are the odds. So no Joey Chestnut for the women. Mickey Sudo minus 1,600. Maoi Ebihara plus 700. Michelle Lesko plus 2,000. Do you want to take the field for plus 5,000? Katie Prettyman plus 7,500. And then Laurel Marie Melee plus 10,000. If you want to take the long odds in the women's contest. Very interesting. Your champion last year was Mickey Sudo. She put down 39.5 dogs.
Woo!
That's a lot of hot dogs.
Man. But so I did see this just now. Joey Chestnut will be facing Kobayashi in the Labor Day hot dog battle. Netflix will air it on September 2nd.
Oh, I've been all over that already. Oh, yeah. I mentioned that earlier today. That's the contest that I'm watching.
Yeah, that's probably where I heard it. I was just like, I was like, maybe zoned out. I was like, I know I heard it somewhere.
So I don't see, where are the men's odds? I don't see. Oh, here we go. Here's the men's odds for you tomorrow. So this didn't even know how his name. We've got a Geoff. We always say Geoff because of Rome. We've got Jeffrey Esper minus 120. You've got James Webb plus 200. Nick Weary plus 550. Patrick Bertoletti plus 800. The field plus 2,500. Gideon Oji plus 4,000. Derek Hendrickson plus 7,500. Darian Thomas plus 7,500. Max Stanford plus 7,500. George Chiger plus 7,500. You know what? That really hurts the contest. I don't know a single name in the contest tomorrow for the men's side. Not one.
Yeah, that's a little disappointing, but maybe, there's some guy that's, could be eaten at least around, 50-ish range.
See, that's what's going to be bad for the contest, because that's what the contest was. It's what will Joey Chestnut do? Is he going to break his own record? Because he was eating like close to 80 dogs, I want to say. And so,
yeah, that's just one thing, ESPN's got to get on Nathan's for, because, they're paying the TV rights for this. And if you're not showing, the best star, then the ESPN's going to be like, well, we can just pull you off TV if you're not going to bring in the star.
Behind the scenes, ESPN, the Chestnut's not part of this. Good question, Mark. I have no idea where 39 dogs go. I don't think I've eaten 39 hot dogs in the last 5 years, but to eat 39 at one time, that is nuts. And Chestnut almost doubles that. I don't know. It's weird though. It's like this weird thing that you shouldn't watch yet you can't look away. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
If you were in the contest, corn dog, what would you dip your hot dogs in? Because everybody dips it in something.
I'm a ketchup guy. I love ketchup in hot dogs. Absolutely love ketchup.
What about the liquid though? Wouldn't you like dip the bun in something? Some people do like fruit punch. Some people just do water.
I don't know, but yeah, I'm mainly a ketchup kind of guy.
Just ketchup? You're just gonna dip it in the ketchup. I love it.
Yeah, I'm mainly a ketchup guy. Yeah, but has anyone here, just anyone has ever entered like a food eating contest before? Like even at like your local fair or something? I kind of want to hear about that.
Yeah, if you've been in a contest, we want to hear from you.
Anything. Pie, hot dogs, bananas, potatoes, I don't know.
Yeah, let us know. Put it in the chat. Corn dog, have a great 4th of July, brother.
All right, man. You
All
guys
right, be well. Good call from Corn Dog. Let's get to the chat and then we'll wrap up. I'll give you a little summary really quick of what I'm hearing with the Kings and where things stand. They have not, if you feel like they haven't done anything, please do not worry. They are not veering off course. This team was going to get better through trade, not free agency. I've also, as I kind of didn't speculate, but summarized at the top, that look in the places that you're not looking. I go back to Amani McNair front office. The first trademark of Amani McNair front office is they're calculated. Always. 2, they're quiet. 3, they like fluidity. They like to be able to get out of things or make adjustments contract-wise at any given time, which you look at last offseason, they were able to do that with Herter's contract. They were able to do that with Barnes's contract, which was very reasonable. He's making 18 this year. Kevin's making 16. So if you take those 3 things, and that's kind of what I was looking at and what was being hinted at. But when you look at those 3 things that have never changed about a Monty McNair office, you can add a 4th to it. They are bold. You could say they're not bold, but they're bold. They traded Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis, and that was not too long into Monty's tenure here in Sacramento. So I would expect that you will probably see them continue because they are monitoring everything that's going on. With free agency starting to slow down, that means other teams are going to be starting to realize, teams like the Clippers, right, that are going to have to build through free agency. They know what their team's probably going to look like going into the season. So as these free agents get thinner and thinner, and the Kings still could make a signing here or there. I know DeMar DeRozan has been mentioned, maybe the Kings as a dark horse for him. I think out of who we're talking about, it's a decent fit. I think if you could get him for the MLE, why not? Plays a decent games. He can play both sides of the ball. He's got a great mid-range game, something the Kings have to get back to. But I would expect that whatever the Kings end up doing, this was the impression that I got. It's going to be a name that you hear for the first time. So take that for what you will, but start looking in the places others are not, like a Bobby Portis Jr. I mean, look at that. Look at the, how do I put this? I don't want to call it the Milwaukee mess, but Milwaukee has really taken a step back since trading for Dame. That was a really, really bad move for them. A really bad move. They did not realize how much Drew Holiday really affected that roster and brought continuity to both sides of the ball for them and distribution and leadership. And he was a huge part of what Boston did this year to win the championship. But, is Milwaukee going to start looking to rebuild? What teams out there may decide, we didn't get the free agents that we wanted. Why pay some of these guys? Let's try to get some draft picks. Let's try to rebuild this in the next 2 years, 3 years, like a Portland is doing. So look at the Knicks. What about a Mitchell Robinson? Now, another thing that I think, or I'm speculating here, but I am assuming based off the conversation, the Kings are looking for something that is longer than a 1-year commitment. even if it includes a player option on the backside, something on the backside rather than whoever they're trading for, having them for 1 year. And then likely, because you got to say likely at the numbers that we're talking about of Brandon Ingram, the likelihood of the Kings bringing him back also when you have Keegan Murray, it doesn't seem like both of those are going to work. And Keegan, to me, from what I'm hearing, is not going to be going anywhere. I think you can put him in the list of De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis at the moment. But the Kings, again, very active. They are monitoring and working angles, working players. And I would not be surprised if you see something happen sometime, I would say in the next 7 days. I think in the next 7 days, there will probably be a move made. We'll see. Again, a lot of that depends on you got to have another team that's willing to dance with you. But you got to also look at situations around the league where teams just might be looking to offload players. A Julius Randle also comes to mind. The problem with him is he only has 1 year left on the contract. You can talk about injury concerns with him. Remember, with what New York did this postseason, Julius was not on the court for them. He had a shoulder injury. So could he possibly be an option at $30 million? I still have my eye on Bobby Portis and Cam Johnson. I know that one came out to the media, but could something get done in Brooklyn if the Kings offered the right package? Because then you still have a couple years of Cam Johnson. Again, look for the players that have a year or two left on their contract. Just don't look at the expiring contracts, and you might find some viable options. That might make everything that's going on right now sit a little bit easier with you, because Sacramento is very anxious. They want to know what's going to happen. They want to see this team improve. But I was reminded too, there were a lot of controllables that the Kings did not control last year, such as shot selection, such as getting to the free throw line. So there is a quiet confidence, especially with the drafting and Devin Carter. And he said it yesterday. I've been saying it based off of the conversations I had leading up to yesterday, that when we talked about the Kings offense, really what it seemed like the way they were moving is turning defense into offense, which means the transition game and getting out, making sure that you're getting to the line, making sure you're getting the other team in the penalty, wearing them down. And then also the other side of getting to the line is most times you get to set your defense on the other end. Think about that was pointed out to me. Think about how often the Kings put together strings of stops, like 3, 4, 5 stops. Or conversely, how many times did the Kings go on long scoring runs? Not nearly as many as they did the year before. So being able to set your defense is a huge deal. And the Kings weren't always able to do that in their transition defense, especially the first half of the season before Keon Ellis started getting minutes, was a mess. But when Keon came in, it gave the Kings the ability to switch a little bit more. Now, there's a classic argument there, is switching really this thing. Sometimes not. It's not. It depends on the personnel that you're playing against, but it gave them more freedom to pick up in the open floor and not as many mismatches. So again, the Kings are working. Hopefully they will improve this roster through trade. To me, that is where it is going to happen. Let's get through these comments and then we're going to wrap up, because Grant will be back at 5 o'clock open forum. Come hang out with him. And then at 8 o'clock tonight, we are going to do Scrum, rep the night. Who knows? Maybe we will be talking about a Kings move. By then, I would expect, again, I'll go back to it, about the next 7 days. I would be surprised if you didn't hear anything, but there is a quiet confidence about things. I mean, people that are saying the Kings need rim protection, check this out. Blocks last year were up 24%. It's pretty damn good. That is a good improvement for a team. A lot more comments on DeMarcus. And if you want to continue the conversation on DeMarcus Cousins, that will be continued on the Kings Court shoot around tomorrow. Looking forward to getting to the rest of that audio. Let's see. Rhino were you here when Rome did his famous tour stop in Sacramento? I believe 2000. Yeah, I think it was 2000 or 2001. I was here in Sacramento, but I was not at either of the tour stops. He did 2 of them that day here in town. Didn't make that. I was lucky enough, though, to get to go in studio with him when he came in 2007. It was a much smaller group, really intimate, really fun experience. We all got to have lunch together afterwards, and then he gave us tickets to the game. Can't beat that. Romy was at the game as well. Let's see. Fun fact, LeBron had his debut in Sacramento. Bronny will have his debut in Sacramento Summer League. Well pointed out there. Yep, the Kings open up in Summer League against the Chinese national team. How about that? And then also remember Devin, he is not going to be available for the California Classic. Dirk, what's up, dude? How you doing? Speaking of Rome, Chael Sonnen appears to have had his Twitter hacked. Uh-oh. I can only imagine what was coming off of Chael's Twitter account, even when it wasn't hacked. I was in the Smack Off one, by the way. Cousins wins so good with Willie Cauley-Stein. I believe Cousins gets into that. I've heard that there is a Willie Cauley-Stein element to this conversation that he had on that podcast. Kai Jones can run faster than Fox and Monk for lob dunks and defensive blocks. You know, the Kings, they mentioned yesterday, or Monty, when Devin Carter was introduced, Jalen McDaniels. I'm still not so convinced he's going to have a big role on this team. In fact, I would be surprised if he does, but he does bring a little bit more of that element to them. Like I said, I compared him to a more athletic Chimezie Metu, but he's still pretty raw, although he has a little bit more experience under his belt. He's got some length, though. So the three-point shot, really big problem for him. He's got to improve that if he's going to play for Sacramento. This is pretty funny. Hey, C-Dog, Plexico Burris, receiver, shot himself in the foot at a New York club. Johnny Pedrosa or Pete DeRosa. Johnny, man, welcome to the party. Yeah, how long ago did that happen? Man, that was when, do you remember that MTV show? It was like True Life something, and I think it was True Life, I'm an NFL rookie. Plaxico was actually a part of that. In fact, I know the Giants Hard Knocks started last night. I have not caught the episode yet. I'll catch up with you, C-Dog, after I check that one out. Peter hopping in. Any chance Charles Barkley / Paul Westphal connection played any part of this? Don't know. Could not say. Hard to say. Paul, unfortunately, has passed away. VV fans, what's up? I haven't seen that name before. Any chance Warriors change their focus to rebuild and we can offer Keegan Herter and 2 first-round picks for Curry? I would say chances are slim to none. Like Dumb and Dumber, you know, like, so you're telling me there's a chance? That's slim that trade happens. Steph Curry will likely finish his career as a Warrior. Cool breeze. I wish we had some cool breezes going here in Sacramento. That's why the Kings are so soft. I agree. I'm sad because Boogie was wickedly talented. He was indeed. Let's see. We're wrapping this thing up. Thanks for being here, y'all. I really, really appreciate it. We're going to be back again tonight at 5. Or Grant will be solo at 5. Then I will be back with him tonight at 8 o'clock. I don't know if anyone noticed, but when Michael Malone was DMC's coach, Keith contributing this, he had a change of attitude under his leadership. It seemed like it, at least. Vivek ruined that worst coach fire for Sacramento. You know what? I am completely in agreement with you, Keith. DeMarcus, for whatever reason, I'm not sure what Michael Malone did. That's a better question for Napes because he was closer to the team. But he connected, at least if you compare it to all of DeMarcus's other coaches here in Sacramento, he seemed to have the best connection with him. And for the first time, it felt like those two, or at least DeMarcus and a coach, were on the same page. And it felt like the team was going to have a turnaround with that season, or at least the start of the season. You had the momentum of the Kings staying in town. Obviously, Ben McLemore, the draft pick that year, did not really pan out, so that did not help. But yes, I thought that was a very bad fire, and you see what it's done. You saw Michael Malone win a championship in Denver, and his mindset, I love Coach Malone's mindset. He is no BS. He comes from a basketball family, and he is intense as hell, and I absolutely love it. Please tell me when 39 hot dogs go. Oh, that we already talked about that one. My bad. Thought that was new. Corn dog. Yes, it is an American competition. I think it's a decent fit. I mean, if you look at what's on the market, if you're going to go for a free agent, I don't think it's a terrible fit. Now, the age doesn't really match up with what the Kings are trying to do. But as I look at DeMar's stats right here, here's games played the last few seasons, 79 last year. That's good. That's in line with what the Kings want. And by the way, he played 37.8 minutes last year per game. That's really impressive. At his age, 35 years old, by the way, 34 years old. He'll be 35 in August. Played 74 games in 22, 23, 21, 22. He played 76, then 61, 68, 77, 80, 74, 78, 60, 69, and 82, dating back to 2012, 2013. I love the amount he plays. So, yes, and I think I talked about this on the Kings Court yesterday when I said earlier today about the Kings, a lot of correctables that they feel like can be corrected, and this team will be much closer to what you saw the year before in terms of its record. I know the records were the same, but at least being in the playoffs, being a team that's up and on the rise. The mid-range last season, there was a decent amount of the season. I mean, from just about the quarter point all the way until after the All-Star break, the Kings were fifth in the NBA. Fourth in the NBA in 2-point percentage, but they were 27th in the NBA in attempts. A guy like DeMar DeRozan, he is a mid-range assassin. He's a smart player too. In fact, DeMar is from LA. He went to USC. He actually is actually very good friends with one of my college teammates, Brandon Heath. So I am very familiar with him. I've had the pleasure of being around a few times. Very professional guy as well. Haunted Horse getting back in here. Really, if I'm eating a hot dog with a bun, I like French mustard and purple onions. Is this going to be a thing, Haunted Horse?
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
We're going to do it live right now, dude. They're red onions. They're not purple onions. They're red onions. And this is coming from a guy whose favorite team wears purple. It is red onions, my man. Red onions. No ketchup. Dave, it's red onions. What are we doing? Does everybody here call them purple onions? Am I the wrong one? I think the Kings will be part of a multiple team trade. There's been some about that. There definitely have. Julius Randle would be great. Again, look in the places where we are not looking right now. My prediction is if the Kings make a trade, it's going to be a name that you have not heard. So that's really what I came away with. So, again, as free agency and the timeline, by the way, think about this. The timeline makes sense. It's lining up. You're letting free agency play its way out when teams get an idea of whether they got the guys they wanted or they didn't. And they look at their rosters, say, maybe it's not worth having this high of a payroll for what we're going to be running with. And that is when players become available. So the Kings are in perfect position right now to still follow through on their plan for the offseason. And don't think that there's just one plan. There's multiple plans. There's multiple scenarios. Monty talked about it in his press conference after drafting Devin Carter. They play out scenarios all the time. So, Manny, what's up, man? Happy to have you here. Other teams continue to get better in the West, and Sack stays the same for the second year in a row. We've been talking about it all show. It is a long offseason. It is only July 3rd. Manny, only July 3rd. A lot of time left in the offseason. I would be surprised if the Kings do not make a move in the next 7 days. And by a move, I mean a trade. So we'll see if that all pans out. I think, again, there are some good players that may not be available right now, but will be available before this week may be available. And you got to think, too, you want to be, I've talked about the Kings being proactive rather than reactive. You want to be on the front end of some of these trades that start happening after free agency slows down, because you don't want precedent to come into play. And I know there's already some of that there with the big trades, multiple draft picks. If you're trying to offload multiple 2nd-round draft picks, if you're trying to offload salary, but for the big players like the Lauri Markkanens, and again, I am going on the record and saying I do not expect the Kings to have a Lauri Markkanen, a Kyle Kuzma, a Brandon Ingram. I think those scenarios have played out. If the Kings were going to take those players, it would have already happened. I think it's too rich. It's too much for the Kings to give up, because it basically goes against one of the principles that Monty McNair runs a front office by, because you are losing the future with no guarantee of the present, because you only have a guy for a year. Some of those names, Kyle Kuzma, the exception there, you get him for a couple of years. But again, look for the guys. If you're looking for what might be a Kings guy, a Kings target, somebody you haven't heard, that's first thing. Second thing, multiple years on the contract. That's going to make it a big deal. Purple and red onions are acceptable for the same type of onion. All right, fair enough. A lot more talk about Chael. Not sure. Must have been pretty bad, huh? No idea. Interesting. Adam met Chael. Love it. All right, we're going to wrap up. Grant's back at 5 o'clock tonight. Again, we will finish the Boogie Cousins discussion, listen to the rest of his comments next week, or actually tomorrow. On the Kings Court. We will do that. And again, that audio was courtesy of Forgotten Sons, the Forgotten Sons podcast. So let me know what you think. You guys make it a great rest of the day. Grant, in just a little bit under an hour and a half, and then we are back together 8 o'clock Pacific tonight. Give me a holy moly.
Holy moly, Jimbaboli.
Go Kings, light the damn beam, stay away from Levine. Credit to BJ. Make it a great rest of the day. Be back at 5 for Grant, and make sure you're back at 8 o'clock for the both of us talking, wrapping up with our Wednesday night sports scrum. And yes, Haunted Horse, I left your comment up on purpose. Don't DM me and be like, hey, you forgot to take a comment down on the closing screen. It's what you always do, bro. Thank you, though, for clearing the record. Court is dismissed.